Alright, welcome back. I forgot to make a video yesterday. Today's Friday. Because I was playing a bunch of video games. So we'll do this one. Why aren't desalination plants everywhere? By 2-Bit Da Vinci. It it is kind of baffling that we have so much seawater. I know the main reason is like because of how expensive and I don't want to say annoying, but like tedious the process is of the desalination. And it just costs a bunch of money that people, governments aren't willing to like put forward because they don't see the lack of water as a scarcity that's like right like like that's about to happen. They think it's like pretty far away, but probably gonna run out of water pretty soon.
This video is sponsored by Lark. What if I told you we could solve all of our fresh drinking water problems and produce enough battery materials to build hundreds of thousands of EVs every day, all without any mining at all? Water makes up 71% of the Earth's surface, which is great because it's fundamental for all life on this planet. But there's a problem.
Excuse me.
Roughly 97% of that is salt water in our oceans. The remaining 3% is fresh water, but it gets worse. 69.
You know what? That's true. They could totally, when they filter the water, they could totally take the minerals that they take from the water while purifying it, and if they thought of it as just another way of mining, like if they were mining the ocean, and instead of thinking it as desalination, but think as the H2O, the drinkable water, as a byproduct of mining the minerals from the ocean, I bet you more companies would fucking do that because there's like a remarkably fuck ton of resources in just the water floating. I mean, it would take like a metric ton of water to get, an ample amount of resource, but your byproduct can also be sold as fresh water. So
9% of that
someone
is
should
stored
fucking
as
do that.
ice largely at the poles. So it's a small wonder there's any fresh water at all. Luckily, it's a really big planet. But why can't we just drink salt water? I mean, it's not as tasty as fresh water, but surely we could make it work, right?
Surely.
No. And here's why. Water makes up about 70% of the mass of the trillions of cells in your body. But if you get dehydrated, that percentage goes down and bad things happen. When you drink pure, clean water, the water concentration is higher outside your cell. And through a process called osmosis, to reach equilibrium, water passes through the cell membrane, leaving you hydrated. But when you drink salt water, even though the bulk of water in your body is higher, the water concentration is actually lower than inside your cells. So no matter how much salt water you drink, osmosis will force fresh water inside your cells outside to help reach a water concentration.
Or instead of desalination, make a pill or chemical that inhibits osmosis for, say a day or 30 minutes, whatever the fucking case is, enough for you to drink salt water. I don't think I've heard of anyone testing stopping osmosis.
Equilibrium. Oh, science, you cruel mistress. It's truly a case of water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. The problem has gotten worse and worse over time as we keep pumping fresh water from underground aquifers for our various needs like drinking water and water for irrigating crops at a rate faster than nature can replenish it from sources like rain. This is basically the problem we have in all aspects of our environment. With billions of people each needing copious amounts of water and other resources, we're using more than we put back, and it's just a matter of time before we run out. Humans use about 4 trillion cubic meters of fresh water annually, enough to fill the entire Grand Canyon to the brim. Agriculture alone can consume between 75 and 90% of a region's water supply. But at least in the case of fresh water, engineering and technology have provided us a solution. It's called desalination, and it's a process of extracting the salt out of salt water, yielding pure, clean drinking water. Technically, we could have desalination plants along all of our coasts, producing clean water to pump back into our lakes and aquifers. So why don't we? Why isn't every country building desalination plants as fast as they possibly can?
They
After
don't
all,
care, bro.
many
They
project
do
that the
not
wars of
care.
tomorrow could be fought over clean water, not oil or other resources. To understand why desalination isn't more popular today, let's start with the evolution of the technology. The principle is actually relatively simple. Get the salt out of the water, but in practice, it can pose a bit of a challenge. See, salt water dissolves easily in water, and when it does, it forms strong chemical bonds which are very difficult to
It's
break.
like so
So with
fine.
desalination, there are two broad categories. The more old school method is thermal desalination, essentially boiling water
That's
into
the one I
vapor
know.
and leaving the
Thermal one.
salt behind. Prior to the 1980s, over 84% of all desalinated water around the world went through this process. But there are a couple of problems with thermal desalination. For one, water has a very high latent heat of vaporization. That is the amount of energy required to turn liquid water into a gas. This stubbornness is hugely valuable as water becomes a great temperature buffer and a very stable liquid most of the time. But it also makes boiling water really difficult. So to boil seawater and separate it from the salt requires a lot of energy. That power often derives from burning fossil fuels, which, contribute to climate change. The second issue relates to the byproduct of desalination, a thick, goopy, salty, watery mixture called brine. This intense concentration of salt and other minerals is often pumped back into the ocean as facilities generally have no use for it. Then it sinks to the sea floor where it wreaks havoc on ecosystems by destroying oxygen.
Well, you were telling me they can't figure out a use for brine or separate other minerals that are in brine. They're like, it makes sense that he's saying that it uses too much energy, but why not use the sun as your source? Like, if there's already a natural way for, clouds to form through heat, then why not just make large ass vats, pump the water in there, and let the sun dry it out while collecting the mist? Like, make a giant fucking thunderdome and let it naturally collect from the heat, right? Like, you don't have to, like, it's a slower process, but you're at least carbon neutral and you're still making fresh water, albeit slowly until you figure out how to do it faster and consuming less energy. Just
Levels
do it the
while
slower
also
way,
obviously
right?
spiking salt content. The more modern method of desalination is membrane based desalination, often called reverse osmosis. Remember osmosis
It's like
from
with
earlier,
the one
how
with
our
about 50
cells
filters or
hydrate?
some shit.
Here, salty water is forced through an extremely fine membrane that separates the water from the salt and other impurities,
But then you
like
gotta
pouring your
replace
pasta
those.
into a fine mesh sieve to let it drain, but at a microscopic level. In general, reverse osmosis solves many of the issues associated with thermal desalination. The process is cheaper and more efficient. Advances in membrane technology require less pressure and therefore less energy to filter the water, making them generally greener. Still, even the process of reverse osmosis can be energy intensive. An RO facility in Kuwait expends more than 889 gigawatt hours annually purifying their water. It's an expensive country is happy to fund, as obviously water is a vital resource. However, if not for their
They
massive oil
definitely
revenues, it's likely that a
need that.
country like
But
Kuwait could not be able to make
places like Kuwait that are like already doing the shit and they're like getting ahead of the curve, they're gonna come out on top once this is a mainstream thing. Once everyone realizes that they need their own type of desalination factory and need to like make it in abundance rather than just like, pussyfooting and putting like a a percentage of their GDP into producing fresh water, then they're just gonna replace the oil. Since everybody's transitioning to EV, they're gonna replace oil with the need of fresh water. That's why you have like Mark Cuban and all these other fucking investors investing in water companies.
such an investment. We have to start seeing clean water for the precious resource it is. That's why I'm thrilled with our sponsor this week, Lark. I talk about what I love, but you know what I hate? Plastic, one-time use water bottles. The solution is purifying water at the
Thanks,
source.
Lark.
While you've probably seen a picture like this before, what makes Lark unique is its PureViz technology that baths your pitcher and water in. There's a third
Dude,
option
Britta punching the air right now.
currently under development that may soon make its debut in one of the most innovative, if controversial, city projects in history. Introducing Neom City. This sprawling megacity will cover over 10,000 square miles or nearly 25,000 square kilometers of the Red Sea coast in the northwestern province of Tabuk, Saudi Arabia. Equal in size to 33 Manhattans, the sheer scale
Bro,
of this
that
project is
plan
dwarfed
is
only by
crazy.
its share of controversy, which
It's
I
gotta
think
work.
is a topic for another day. The city is
You gotta hope
designed
it
to integrate
works.
renewable and sustainable technology at every level of its infrastructure, creating a complete circular resource economy. Cloud seeding technology to produce artificial clouds.
We can like do this right now and change up the way our architecture is right now, right? Like instead of doing the shit that we do now, that was started in the 1800s, like the plan, the rules for architecture in America. We could do that. We could do what they're doing right now. We could steal their fucking ideas and go green right now. Paris is already doing it. Germany's already been doing it. They're making they're changing their existing cities. What I'm saying is, if that costs too much money, and America doesn't want to do that, then why not make every single building built after this year green or equally sustainable,
A Jurassic Park style island
carbon
with
net
actual
neutral,
robotic dinosaurs, and over
carbon
two-thirds of the
positive?
land
Fuck it.
allocated to natural growth so that nature will only
Shit
be
in
a
China is
5-minute
carbon
drive
positive.
from the metropolis. The city will also
How's
be
America not
completely
carbon positive?
independent of existing state energy systems,
We don't care.
providing 100% of its power from renewable sources. But what's most impressive is how this futuristic utopia plans to provide water to its many residents in the middle of a scorching desert with no natural fresh water. In general, Saudi Arabia is home to the 10 largest desalination plants in the world, ranging from 600,000 to 1 million metric tons and providing water to 50% of the region's population.
See, they're already
NEOM's
doing
water
it.
solution, however,
they're
applies an entirely
starting,
new
bro.
approach to desalination in line with the city's general philosophy of energy conservation and renewal. The process is technically a thermal plant, but instead of deriving power from fossil fuels, the system will harness the power of the sun. The structure will consist of a massive hydrological sphere, basically a huge dome made of glass and steel. Seawater flows into the dome where it gets heated by parabolic mirrors placed around the sphere, capturing sunlight and focusing them into the
natural
dome to vaporize
cycle
the water.
of water.
As water vaporizes, it leaves the salt behind and then precipitates back down as fresh water. Being located adjacent to the Red Sea, the facility can produce loads of fresh water without consuming any electricity or producing any greenhouse gas emissions.
You could even make
for the
multiple
pumps, they'll have to
domes
pump
if you want it to
this
be
water around.
pure.
But still, a massive reduction in energy. And the leftover brine, the plan is to extract the leftover salt concentrate, then process it to obtain useful substances. Here's a list of various elements found in the ocean and their concentrations measured by parts.
Look at all this shit that you can get from the ocean. All this shit, you could sell all of this shit. Sulfur is one of the most important things in the world. And if you could get an abundance of sulfur, sodium, it used to be pretty important. Salt used to be mad important. And you can't hate it just because like it's what they used to keep meat and raw products useful over a long period of time. I forgot what that process is called, but salt is always useful. Chloride, you can use that for like cleaning shit and pools, whatever the fuck. But sulfur, if you can get that much sulfur, you can make a lot of money, bro. At some point, if we transition to clean energy, we're gonna run out of usable sulfur. So if this is just another way to get sulfur. This is genius.
Parts per million.
Why aren't
I
people
want to
doing
bring your
this?
attention near the bottom of the list to these elements that we can use for either energy, like thorium and uranium, and also battery materials like lithium, nickel, and cobalt.
Those are
this
useful too.
synergy of producing fresh drinking water and finding amazing applications of these trace elements of huge importance around the world will be what pushes this technology forward. The estimated 16,000 operational desalination plants located across 177 countries generate roughly 95 million cubic meters of fresh water every day. Assuming the same density as pure water, that's more than 100 million tons of salt water processed every day, enough to extract 10 million kilograms of lithium, enough to build 142,000 Tesla Model 3s every day. Yeah, the sooner we stop seeing this as a waste product and seeing it as a gold mine, the sooner desalination projects around the world will ramp up. Meanwhile, NEO's system only uses 100% renewable energy, but it doesn't stop there. The city's infrastructure is designed to repurpose any potential wastewater, which will be fully processed to generate electricity, fertilizer, and reusable fresh water for irrigation. The goal is to achieve zero waste and a circular waste economy to inspire other global leaders. In addition, the water filtration process could eventually lead to hydrogen fuel production on site as well, which has been touted by many, including us, as a possible game changer in the future of energy. Things like hydrogen fuel cell boats and airplanes. As you mentioned, Neom City has faced a lot of controversy, and we aren't exactly proponents of the concept until a full assessment of its impact is established. But using solar energy and parabolic mirrors to heat and desalinate water.
Why the fuck would you? If these people are using desalination and you're like, oh my god, you could be more efficient. What is the what? How can they be more efficient? Tell me, bro. Tell me. Like, tell them. If you're gonna protest them and tell them they fucking suck and they could do better, what is your fucking plan?
Can be studied and applied by any country around the
Crazy.
world, especially in arid regions near oceans where water is scarce. This technology is new and largely unproven. As such, there is a whole host of questions to consider. How much will it cost to create a solar thermal desalination plant? How much maintenance will be required? And how will levelized operating costs per unit of clean water compare to other forms of desalination? So, to answer the question that we asked at the very beginning, why aren't desalination plants everywhere? Well, there are 16,000 in operation today, which is probably more than you were thinking, but it still pales in comparison to how many we probably need going forward. And why we don't have more, it just comes down to cost. The cost of desalinating water currently is really
Always
high.
money.
But what if we could change that around and make this a gold mine opportunity to get raw materials from our oceans?
You gotta make it profitable. This keep saying the only way for anyone to get anything, for like a government to change or like a company to start being like funded, is that they think you can make them more money than they're investing in you. They don't care that it's helping out the world. They just want to know if they can make more money.
Produce clean drinking water, all powered by the sun. And I think that's exactly why this is an absolute game changer. And only time will tell how this plays out, but I really do hope that a lot more countries around the world start to invest in this sort of
This guy looks like
technology.
Sully from Top
One
Boy.
thing is for sure, the opportunity is massive and the need is dire. Let's not wait until a dystopian future where wars are waged for clean drinking water. Let's start getting clever about some new solutions today. And while we're at it, let's consider the whole cradle to grave aspect of this operation. It's not good enough to dump this highly damaging brine back into our oceans. We need to do better. We must do better. But what do you guys think? Is desalination the way forward to resolve global water shortages? Are you ready to book a room in Neom City? Let us know in the comments below. But before you go, we have just enough time for the comments of the week.
You know what? If a company, someone, if you make this company, you gotta give me like 2%, bro. Someone needs to make a company where instead of making desalination factories, clearly expensive, right? Not very expandable, and it's hard to like scale that. Someone needs to invent um like a bulb, right? Like you make a like a bulb, you make a bulb and it does the whole desalination thing, and you just need to make it a part of every household. And if it's a part of every household, it's you can make it solar powered or whatever, or you can hook it up to the utilities in the home. Let the powering of the product be up to the consumer, and from there, what you would need to do as the person creating the product of this small desalination bulb is to somehow convince utility places to make a separate pipe, a seawater pipe in every new household, old household, whatever the fuck, and have that just connect to the ocean. So it would just pump straight ocean water through these pipes, right? I mean, you kind of have to worry about um over salting of the pipes and somehow like make it streamlined so it doesn't collect minerals in the pipes, blah blah blah. Someone needs to figure that shit out. But you pump from straight from the ocean, go to these neighborhoods, probably, coastal neighborhoods to start, and straight up filter the seawater in their home. So not only can you sell the service, but you can sell the product to do it. And the utility people aren't getting fucked. So they're also getting money from it. You make a whole new industry of it. Multiple companies doing the same thing in different variations. They can make their own desalination bulb, and you can scale it. You can you can start from the coast, and then from the coast, instead of like desalinating factories, you can just make a factory like running an oil pipe, across Germany and Russia. You would run a water pipe from New York to Nevada, and you would just funnel water. Like that's it. You're just funneling water, and all the little pipes would go to your desalination product. Someone, and then you could do coast to coast, whatever the fuck. You could sell this to Mexico. You could sell it to Canada. You can sell it literally anywhere. Because then all you would need is then I mean, people in those countries could also start the same shit. But all you would need is the water pumping, which is way cheaper than desalination, and you also make money from the product that you're selling. Yeah, small desalination products that would be hooked up to their homes. You're welcome. How it going?